Okay, I'm working on my 2013 Hyundai Sonata here, and we were taking this for a drive today, and we've been driving this all over, by the way, but we were taking it for a drive today, not even a mile down the road, started hearing a horrible screeching sound coming from the passenger side up here in the front. So I don't really know what's going on at this point. So we're just going to get in here and take a look and see what we find. Okay, so we got a 21. We're going to go ahead and get these lugs broke loose. Okay, we got the rear wheel chocked, and we got a jack stand under here. We're just lifting it right there on the frame. Okay, before I take this one off, I just want to spin this. I've got it neutral, so we got the wheels chocked and brake on the back. I'm not hearing anything here like I would expect with like the dust shield. So we're going to go ahead and get the wheel off. Okay, my first thoughts was like the dust shield was bent or a wheel bearing. You know, pretty common to have the wheel bearing start making a racket. These brake pads don't look real good, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pop that off and take a look at that next and see. The front pad I can see is still got a little left on it there, but I can't really see the rear one real good, so we're going to pop that off and see if maybe this caliper is seizing up, you know, and check these pins and stuff. Okay, I can see the back side of this with the wheel. I turned it to the left and it's not getting into the metal part of the pad, so I don't think that the pad is going to be the issue unless this caliper itself is seizing up. So I'm going to go ahead and get a 14 and take these the slide bolts out here, and we'll inspect them and see what's going on. Okay, so here's that little slide bolt. We'll get the one out of the top there. Okay, we're just going to set this up here. Now, it could be a problem with our piston, I suppose, but I want to check these slide pins first. And it's got grease on it. It's really not looking bad. Okay, I've just re-greased that, cleaned it up. I don't think that's our problem. But we're going to go ahead and remove these pads, and I think the next thing we're going to do is take this bracket here off, and we'll proceed on from there. Okay, I'm just using a 17 on this bracket. Top one up there's a little bit trickier to get to. Got a bolt in the way, so we may use a swivel on that. Okay, so we got a swivel. It's going to do the trick. Okay, so we're about to get this bracket off here. Yeah, there we have that. So far I haven't seen anything that would that's just sticking out. Okay, so we're going to straighten these wheels back up. I'm going to take these two Phillips screws and we're going to go ahead and get this rotor off of here. And basically my plan, because I haven't really seen anything, is to isolate this bearing, because I really feel like the noise may be coming from the bearing. But I can't rule out the CV axle either. Alright, next time we're going to get this cotter pin off, and we're going to get an impact over here and get this nut off of here. Alright, so we got our pin out. We got a 32. Okay, so we about got it here. And we just got to get this little washer off here. Alright, we just flipped that around. I've had these off not long ago, so they're not going to give me much trouble. That's about as far as I think we're going to move it. You can see it is moving. But you got to make sure to grease these every time you take them apart. See, it's nice and loose. Alright, so we're going to get on our strut here. Okay, first thing, we got to get this tin for ABS here. These come out pretty easy. We just need that slack. Okay, there's that little. Just give that a wiggle back and forth. And we got this 12 holding this brake line. We need to get it out of the way. Okay, I got a 19. I'm gonna hold on this side. I got a 24 millimeter here, and I'm just gonna get my impact and zip this one and that lower one off. Or there's that upper one out. Alright, I'm just getting ready to drop this down, pushing on this CV2 at the same time. I want to pop it out. Okay, so the CV, I've just kind of got it setting aside, and I'm going to put one bolt back in this. The CV feels fine. However, this isn't, if you can hear that noise, and sometimes where you get a bearing that won't be making much noise until you actually get some weight on it. But I do believe that it's coming from this bearing here. Okay, so I don't know if you can pick this up or hear this, but shouldn't be hearing that rubbing noise. The CV axle is not going to be making that type of noise. It seems fine. However, I am going to replace that CV while I've got this apart because it's clicking, and just take care of both of them. But this right here is the culprit, and it's one of those press in type. So we're going to have to work on getting this out and pressing a new one in. Alright, I'm just getting ready to pop this CV out. It's got my, just come back up here, and this is coming out pretty easy. So we got it loose. We're going to come to the outside and just finish pulling it out. Alright, we should be able to reach up here and pull the rest of this out of here. Now, the way these are sealed, you don't have to worry about the fluid from your transmission draining out when you remove this. Okay, and here's a view of this long CV axle laid out here. Okay, so we're just going to try to get to this clip here. We're not going to take it off of the knuckle. It's not really going to make it any easier, with the exception of removing this. But I'm going to go ahead and get some of my spring pliers over here, and we're going to try to see if we can work this out. Okay, at first I worked these little ends up because it doesn't have the typical holes. I worked these ends up with a flat, and then it was enough that I could get a hold of it with these. And you're going to want some heavy duty ones. See, these here are not real great, and they're wanting to slip. Regardless, you want to try to get yourself a good pair of these pliers so they're not, otherwise you're going to have a little bit of difficulty fighting with that part right there. And if you're not careful, you could actually bend and damage this. Of course, you can get a replacement, but alright. Okay, now important thing before we go to knocking this out of here, we want to find out what the distance is from this knuckle to the back of this hub here. So we're going to go in here with something and figure out that thickness. That way when we go to push the new one back in, we'll have it setting exactly the same here. Okay, so a quarter appears to be pretty close because I can barely slide a piece of paper in there. It's like really tight, so I would say that the quarter is just about right. Just kind of loosely we'll be able to fit a quarter in there. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my socket and hammer and just hit this back here without getting too rough, and see if I can't knock it out this way. And if I don't have any luck, I'm going to take this off, and we'll just take it out here and get it set up on some blocks. Now, I usually like using the puller to get a hold of the front and yanking it off that way, but I don't have one handy, and I'd have to get one. Okay, the other way wasn't going to work, so I went ahead and I just basically have fastened it back in the knuckle here, and we've got something a little more crude. I got a chain here. Really all you need is some weight. I've got this heavy hitch here, and we're going to try this out and see what's going to happen. Okay, now the only thing about this, we're going to have to be cautious once we start getting it loose. We don't want it flying off there and hitting us in the leg, so once we start getting it to come loose, we're going to have to kind of get out of the way over here. Okay, so that idea didn't work out either. We're going to pop off this tie rod and just take it out of this ball joint and get it over here. We can work on it. I know with those slide hammers there's not a whole lot of effort required, but I guess you just have to have the right tool, and the chain ain't gonna work. Okay, we'll get this 14 loose. Now I don't want to take this all the way off because we're gonna have to knock this out with the hammer. Now this I do not want to damage, so I'm gonna have to be cautious. Get it up here flush. Let's see if we can tap this thing out. Okay, we'll start off with this. Alright, let's try some more. These things can be quite difficult, and it is not wanting to budge thus far. Okay, we'll try it with a regular hammer. There we go. Okay, so we got that out of the way. We'll go ahead and work on the ball joint. We got a pin on that too. So we got to bend this up. Once you take this stuff loose once, it's never as hard to remove again. Okay, so we got the 17mm nut on this side that we got to remove. Okay, on this side we also got a 17mm head on this bolt, and we're going to have to hold this side when we take it loose on the other side there. Now, you notice the point on the end of here. We can hit this, but we don't want to get too rough with it because we could damage these threads. What we're going to do is get in here with a screwdriver, pry bar, and work this apart and put some spray lubricant here to break this loose. These bolts just kind of seize up in here over time. I'm going to get in here, work this loose. That pinch point, we want to kind of break that loose a little bit. Okay, now we're going to get on this other side. This thing is still not moving. Let's see if we can get it to turn at all. It appears to be kind of seized up. It may even in fact be bent. The way that it's moving, it looks kind of like it's bent, so we may not be able to salvage this bolt. Okay, it's moving. Why don't we tap this out of here? Cross our fingers that we got some threads left. Okay, looks like it was just seized onto this part with rust, so the threads are okay. And this is a little bit bigger, which is very good. Okay, I got a big crowbar running up through there onto that frame. I want to tap it here with my rubber mallet. Give it a little more persuasion. It's coming out of there. As you can see, it's slowly moving down. Alright, we're very close. Okay, I just finished hitting it here with the mallet and it popped right on off there. So all we got to do now is just remove these bolts. Are not even threaded on there. We'll just take this whole knuckle off. Right, so there's the whole knuckle off there. Okay, so taking the knuckle off wasn't going to work either, so we're going to go with what I originally should have done, the slide hammer, the 10-pound slide. The way the heat shield is made on that hub, it's almost impossible to take it off and knock that bearing out without damaging the heat shield. So I'm going to get this right here set up. Okay, so here we got it set up. This thing is pretty easy to use. You know, basically we're just going to slide this thing and it'll come off real easy. There's a nut I usually put on here and snug it down and thread into that, but it was messed up, so I just threaded it directly into this piece right here. Okay, this is a 5-pound slide. I thought it was a 10-pound, but I was wrong. But it's usually enough to get the job done. bit. Okay, you can see that space there right now. See, we almost got it there. No, usually the little ball bearings will fall out with this. Okay, so that came out pretty good. Okay, and I went up getting the loaner tool from Advanced Auto. It's like a $180 deposit, but definitely save yourself some trouble because some of these are really difficult to remove, and you see how easy that was. Okay, so here's our kit to press the bearing in, and so I need to go ahead and just get me a slide hammer because that 5-pound works plenty good for these wheel bearings. So we're going to go in here, we're going to select the size we need to get back here for now and push this out. We'll need one of these cups as well to push the bearing into. Okay, we're going to start with a size that fits this here and start pushing from the front. We're also going to take this and get this on the back. Okay, so we got the big cup, we're going to position that like that. We'll also have another piece that fits on there, and we'll get our bolt going through it. We're basically just going to push that in there. We may have to redo it a few times if it doesn't work the first time. Sometimes it'll push these bearings and you can't. You got the washer. You got the washer going through here. We're going to get that on the back like that. Get this other part set up through the front. Okay, so I got a 27 here, and we've got a 33 over here on this other side. Okay, so we got this moving, but we may have to get a hold of it a couple times if it just pushes the inner bearings out and doesn't grab the rest of it. We're going to see what it'll do. I said this arbor in the front fits, you know, just fits going in the front of this here. Okay, so switch over to my breaker bars. It's starting to get really hard to move. Okay, wound up taking this back off and popping the bearings out of here, you can see, and then I put the arbor back in, and we're just now breaking it loose, and you really need to use a breaker bar. So as you're initially breaking this loose, you're going to hear it pop where it really starts moving. I pretty much had to get those ball bearings out of there before I could really get it to bite a hold of it real good. But it's coming out pretty easy now. Once you get it kind of broke loose, the rust, then you can basically just get it with the ratchet pretty easy at this point. And the ratchet's pretty much holding itself on the back side there. About the first ½ inch is probably the hardest. Going back in, it will not be near this difficult. But usually those ball bearings will fall out when I pop the hub off. For some reason they didn't. So basically I had to dig them out of the way. So we're just about completely through here. Looks like that's it. Okay, that's how it comes out of there. Okay, so it's that arbor going up there and hitting on that. So, you know, when you got your bearing in your hand, you can take and find the exact arbor to push this back in with. But there's the old bearing. We'll clean this up, wipe it up, put a little oil on it. Okay, we're getting ready to put our new bearing back in. The numbers were going on the inside, so we're going to put it back the same way. This thing's been in the freezer. It's going to make it much easier to press in here. Just trust me. This is the arbor I'm going to use. It fits the best. And that's what we're going to use to push this back in here. I got this assembly lube. Just kind of dousing it down really good where this is going to go in here. Alright, we just got this flat piece going on the front, got the bolt coming through here, and we just got that one centered, and we may have to stop and recenter this if need be, but we want to start off slowly and get it going centered up before we just take off with it. And with it, okay, this has been one of the more difficult ones that I've worked on. So far I've had no luck getting it to center up. I've had to tap it back out, restart it. So I'm going to try to tap it in with a hammer this time, see if I can get it started, and then get a hold of it with the arbor. Okay, so I lightly tapped the bearing into place. I mean lightly because you don't want to damage the edges of the bearing. And I just reset my arbors here. We're just going to go ahead and push this into place. It should go pretty easy. If I quit hitting the camera. Just got this wrench just kind of sitting there, propped up against that knuckle. So we'll just do this until it basically can't move it anymore. Definitely want to get it in here while it's still cold. It's just going to be more difficult. And we're going to let it warm up. And we'll get our bearing or our hub out of the freezer. This is one of the more difficult ones. Usually these aren't even this difficult to press in. It's really a snug fit, I can tell. I'm just going to keep doing this till it bottoms out here. Okay, you'll know it when it bottoms out here. You won't be able to turn this anymore. So we're going to go ahead and back this off and make sure that it's seated enough that we can get our C-clip on there. I keep these threads oiled up too, just to keep as much leverage as you can get. Okay, it looks good from the front. We'll check the back here. Okay, so we got to make sure we've got enough clearance in here to get our clip back into place. If we don't, then we're going to have to press it in a little more, but it looks good from here. Right, and here we go with our clip. Okay, so we've got our snap ring back in there. Okay, and I'm going to put this back in here. I'm going to flip it around smaller. I'm going to support this while I'm pushing the hub in here. We're going to do the same thing. Just going to flip that around. Feed that bolt back through. Alright, so we've got this out of the freezer. This is warmed up. We're going to put a little bit of that lube around there as well. Got our arbor. Sometimes you need more hands. Alright, so we're just going to get our wrench back on here and start turning this, get a little bit of lube on here. Now this is actually going a lot easier than the bearing itself. Like this is like, usually the bearings go in this easy for me, more especially when they're frozen. That bearing did not want to go in. So I kind of wonder about the tolerances. This is going nice and easy, so we're going to get our quarter in here. When we get down close, we're going to go ahead and just crank it on down while it's nice and cold so it don't get difficult on me. This is going really easy. I don't even need the extension on the ratchet. Getting close. We'll get our quarter here and check it out. Okay, so the little quarter and the piece of paper worked out exactly, but it appears that the bearing also has a stop on it there, so it only goes so far. So we'll go ahead and loosen this off and check everything out here. Make sure it's working smooth. But the hub itself was very easy to install in comparison to the bearing. Okay, I don't see any wobble. It feels nice and smooth. Alright, so all we got to do is get our other stuff put back together here. And said I would have been way easier if I would have just got the 5-pound slide hammer to start with instead of taking all this other stuff off. But anyways, we got it now. We're going to go ahead and work on putting our tie rod and our pinch bolt down here in place, and work on getting our CV axle back in place. Okay, so I got this torqued back here to 40 foot-pounds. Just getting ready to put this little pin back on. Okay, I'm getting ready to put the pinch bolt back onto the ball joint. Alright, I'll get this nut back on. We're going to torque this to 55 foot-pounds if we can hang on to it. And we'll get our little pin back in this. Said I didn't have to take this part off. I could have avoided all this, but I thought I could knock it out this way. We'll go ahead and torque that to 55. Right, so I'm just bending this pin back over. Okay, we're just going to pop it out of the strut up here so we can get our CV axle back in place. Alright, we'll go ahead and get our CV axle. Here's our new CV axle. I'll leave a link to this. This comes with its own new nut on the end there. So this is, we'll do a quick comparison, but it looks exactly like the other one over there. So they look the same. The only exception is that little rubber whatever it is that's put there, dampener or whatever. You know, I've never seen the aftermarkets come with those, only the factory, but everything else looks the same. We're going to put a little dab of grease on this end where it's going to pop up into the transmission. And there we have it. We'll go ahead and get this under the car. Okay, so here we go. And this is a really long CV axle. We'll need to get underneath to verify we've got it into alignment here. We'll get our rubber mallet, kind of tap this into place. But it's a really long CV axle, so you can see when things get out of balance with this, how you can develop a lot of wobble. This had a little bit. It was mainly clicking, but it did have a little bit of wobble too. Okay, so I'm going to start trying to tap this in with the rubber mallet first. Sometimes I can do the, get it in alignment and kind of, there we go. It worked better that way. Just kind of used it kind of like a jackhammer. Okay, we'll grease this down. Here, always grease these before I put them in. Go ahead and slip this back into our hub. Like I said, the CV axle was clicking, and it did have some wobble to it, so it could be that the CV axle accelerated the bearing wear. Alright, so you can't see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm just working these back in. And these nuts are self-locking, so let's give that a push forward until we can get that one lined up. Alright. Alright, so we're just going to get these back on. Okay, so I'm holding this side with a 19. I'm tightening on this with a 24. Right, so we're going to go ahead and torque these to 110 foot-pounds. I'll go ahead and get that lower. Go ahead and get our axle nut on. We'll give it the final torque once we get the weight of the car back on the wheel. Right, I'm going to slip this ABS sensor back in place. We'll get our little bolt back in there and snug that up. Go ahead and get this brake line back on here. A little 12mm. Okay, before I forget, I actually had this little split lock and washer that goes on there first. Right, we got a rotor. Gonna make sure that we get these holes here lined up. All right, so we got our little screws, little Phillips screws. Go ahead and get these tightened up. These just hold it in place nicely. It kind of helps you to line up your caliper though. Alright, so that's good. Alright, so we're getting ready to get this back into place. We're going to get some Loctite on these. Okay, we're going to torque these to 75 foot-pounds. We'll have to use the swivel to get to that top one. Right now we're getting ready to slip this back on. It should just go back into place here. Right, so we'll get these little bolts, put a little Loctite. And we're just threading these down by hand first. Already got the slide grease on it. We did that when we got started. I'm going to torque these 14s here down to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the wheel back on. We've got the center cap out here. Okay, now we're just going to put a couple of these on, long enough to get the weight on the vehicle and torque it. We're going to have to take it back off and get our cotter pin in. Okay, we'll go ahead and get it lowered back down. Okay, I've got our 32mm. We're going to go ahead and torque this to 175 foot-pounds. Okay, we'll go ahead and jack the vehicle back up and get our cotter pin, get the wheel off, get the cotter pin back in. Alright, we got our new cotter pin. Then if we can't get it to line up, we'll have to turn it a little more, but it's lining up good. Right, we'll get our wheel back on. Right, I'm going to go ahead and torque these lugs to 100 foot-pounds. Right, I'm going to snap this back on. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. I just took it down the road. Everything sounds good. The clicking noise went away, and that was mainly doing that when we put it in reverse and back up. But all the vibration, the grinding noise has went away. So, I replaced the CV and the bearing. The CV axle ran me about $75. And the bearing kit that I ordered, I got both these from eBay, and I'll leave the links. The bearing kit was about $50. So, you know, $125 to fix this. And this was just out of the blue, so the other side appears to be fine. There's no clicking coming from the other side now, and I didn't know which side it was originally because it was hard to determine where the clicking was coming from. But anyways, I hope you found the video helpful. Said it got the problem fixed up on this car. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and thanks for watching.